All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for another World Cup panel. I know it's been an exciting World Cup, and we've seen a lot of people out there saying quite possibly the best World Cup they've seen so far. We're getting into the nitty-gritty right now. It's winding down. Kyndra D. St. Aubin with Minnesota United, along with Manny and Ethan Finlay. And we've been lucky enough to have a lot of fantastic guests join us throughout the panel as the World Cup is going on, the MLS season is going on, the transfer window is opening up. There's no shortage of activity, so it's been really awesome to still be able to come here to Brit and watch some of the games and participate in these panels. So first of all, welcome, guys. I know you've got nothing else going on today, just a few things we're checking off our list, but everyone's going to be sitting down and watching the game today, right?
It's exciting. I think the guys just got done with training. I think they'll have lunch, and I'm sure most of them will get a chance to watch the game this afternoon.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good one. I think this is quite possibly the best World Cup that we've had so far. Ethan, would you agree, in your lifetime anyway?
Yeah, you know, every game has been exciting. You haven't had many goalless draws, and even if there have been draws, they've been these 2-2 exciting games. So I think we're in for another great offensive match here today.
Well, and early on, before the World Cup even got underway, we asked both of you guys who your prediction was to win it. And forgive me if I don't remember who you said, but are your team still in it? And if not, who do you have winning it all now?
Well, my team should have been out in the group stage in Argentina, but they narrowly got through, so I saved a little bit of face. But I know Manny's is still alive. He'll tell you about it.
Yep. Allez le bleu. I've got France.
You got France. You and Amos both picked France.
We did, yep. So just, I mean, again, I think they've played their way into the tournament, to be honest. I don't think they started as sharp as I thought they would, but I think they've gotten better each game, and they've looked a lot sharper the last couple games.
Well, I had Germany, so I also fizzled out early on in that one. But I think what's great about this tournament is that regardless of who you had winning it, regardless of who maybe your fan favorite is or your pick or who you love to watch, there hasn't been a game yet where you've sat down to watch and thought, I personally hashtag the other day, I was like, soccer is boring after those quarterfinal games, because we deal with that a lot in this industry. People that say soccer is boring or, not as high scoring as some of the other sports. If you've watched any of these games of this World Cup, there is no chance that you can say that. And it's not all about goals. It's just about some fantastic soccer.
I just think the tension, the really, a lot of teams wanted to go for it, the excitement. Again, I still... My peak World Cups were between 82 and 86, and I think it has a little bit more to do with your age. So when I talk about this being the best World Cup ever, for me, it's going to be about, I know the next generation of soccer kids that need to be inspired and need to get excited. They've been watching this World Cup, absorbing it at that age where they're just going to fall in love with it. And it has been a great World Cup because it's been attacking. There's been tension. There's been goals, but there's also, to your point, been just great defending and great chess match within the game, which I think is what soccer's about.
Well, and I think, to your point, it's not just about the goal scoring. A lot of times that's what catches the headlines. That's what ends up on YouTube. But some of the goalkeeping as well. I had a great discussion with JP last week in our panel about Schmeichel and his kid and the performance he put on. My niece went to a soccer camp yesterday for 7 hours, and her coaches were goalies, so now she's like fully inspired to be a goalkeeper. Ethan, what do you think that the younger generations can take away from this World Cup?
Well, I think it's something you just touched on. It's the storylines, and I think we've seen so many different ones. Obviously, the Schmeichel storyline of, obviously, his dad watching him play and making some great PK saves, and Denmark still falls short. But just the storylines. I'm sure everyone's seen the Neymar memes that have been going around of him rolling around through space and everything. So, the more we can get young people involved in understanding the game, whether it's via social media or via watching the games, I think we'll have more people that maybe didn't plan on tuning in a month ago when they knew the United States was not going to be involved in this World Cup than we ever would have thought.
Do you have a favorite moment yet so far in this tournament, Manny? Like one that you can really pinpoint?
I mean, for me, still the game of the tournament was Japan-Belgium. I just loved it.
That was insane.
And I really enjoy when you have a favorite, but then you have an underdog that plays with such heart and passion and an honor. I mean, it really, I think, sets up a great generation of just pride for Japan in terms of how about they're going about trying to develop and get soccer going. At the end of the day, we have a team today in Belgium that's one of the best teams in the tournament, and the only way for them to win that game was to dig down and play with the kind of quality they have, but they actually needed more than that. They needed heart, they needed discipline, and they needed to come together as a team, and it's why they're so dangerous today against France, I believe.
We were watching that game at the office in the kitchen, And it was just crazy because you could hear the yells going on in different parts of the office. And when we're up at the training facility at NSC, the TVs down in the players' lounge are like 15 or 20 seconds ahead of what our computers are. So you hear the roar go on, especially when Mexico and Peru and some of those countries were still in it, Colombia. And it was like we would just have to wait 20 seconds to figure out what everyone was cheering about. We knew something happened.
That feels like a very first world problem in the streaming era that we now are frustrated by 20 seconds time lapse. But I like it, though.
But it was cool because it was, Ibsen for Brazil cheering because they scored, or whoever he was playing against cheering because they just came up with a big save. Like, it could have gone either way because guys are rooting against each other a lot of times within the club, and you see that. I was a little disappointed. Brent Coleman told me that they did not do a bracket. The team did not do a bracket. How is that possible, you think?
You want to know what? 4 years ago, I was involved in the league, and we didn't do a bracket. So
really?
Yeah, no. I guess I've never done a bracket, but we did as a group watch a lot of the games together. You found guys coming in maybe earlier than they would to catch the early game and then get in and get some of their work done. And we get through training, and Adrian and the staff would say, let's do training 30 minutes sooner or later so we can make sure we catch this game. And it's good. I think it's good for the guys, the camaraderie, and obviously the competitiveness amongst the group. When you have guys from their home countries playing against each other, it makes it a little bit more passionate. Us neutrals were jumping on the bandwagon every once in a while, so it made it for an exciting last month.
Yeah, I know you would be doing your laps, and every once in a while you'd ask us, "What's the score of that game?" Because the 10 o'clock game would be in the middle of it as you're doing your laps of your rehab.
Yeah.
In my world, we can't promote the gambling side of it, but we hope they do it in the
gambling, it's just
world.
a fun bracket. I didn't say there's money on it or anything like that. Yeah, none of that. So today's matchup, just some star-studded, talented rosters. You just mentioned sometimes coming down to heart when you mentioned the Japan-Belgium game. What is going to be the tactical move in this matchup today with France and Belgium, and who do you see coming out on top?
I think we can get into our predictions in a little bit, but I think the unique thing about today, which I just absolutely love, and it's just when you think about the way Belgium played against Brazil, and you think about the way that they absorbed Brazil's amazing creativity and attacking prowess, but the only reason they could do that is because they had such a good front three in Lukaku, Hazard, and De Bruyne, and I was thinking about it today. I can honestly tell you, I don't know which player's been better this tournament. They've all been so good in so many ways and so key parts of the team. You've got Lukaku, who loves to play in between the two forwards. Again, I would tell any center forward to go back and watch the last couple games he's played. His selfless running has been amazing. The goal in Japan, he didn't touch the ball once, but he zigzagged up the field to create all the space and then the dummy for the game-winning goal. And then De Bruyne has been the same player he's been all year for Man City. He to me, is this new modern soccer player that just loves and enjoys it to be like a LeBron James type of passer on the field. And he takes over games with his passing. And I'll be honest, I think Hazard had a bad year in the club level. And so him coming to this tournament and showing, particularly against Brazil, to fight, to take fouls, to stay on his feet, to really kind of, I think, provide a sense of leadership that I was surprised he had in him. Those three for me, I'm just so excited to see how they're going to kind of, use that game against Brazil and see if they can have the same level against a French team that's unbelievable as well.
Ethan?
Yeah, that was a great breakdown of Belgium. And I think on the other side, a team that I had a lot of doubts of is France at the start of this tournament. I really didn't know if they could put it together as a group. I think they had the star power. You look at these two teams just in general, I mean, there are stars in every position that you look at from the front to the back to the goalkeepers. But I've been really impressed with how France has defended. And then getting goals from their center backs on set pieces. And I think we've seen set pieces. That's been a real big thing, obviously, in this tournament. And it's been a difference maker for France. So I think a team that doesn't get enough credit for their defensive shape and how they're organized. France has been a very tough team to break down throughout this tournament. And obviously you got the firepower on the other end.
I think I love the comment he just made about French defensively because it helps me bring up a player who's been unbelievable, and it can bring up my World Cup in 1982. And if there's any French fans listening, Jean, what a player, like one of the players that made me fall in love with the sport of soccer. And Conte is another one, a very similar ilk, this era for France, that does all the little things well. And I think Ethan's spot on. I mean, they have been really, really good defensively.
Who do you think is that player these days for this generation? If it's not just the pure goal scorer, someone who grabs the headlines, that maybe would make you fall in love with the game watching him play. Maybe a little bit older generation, so not like, the 10 or 12-year-olds, but you get into that era of 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-olds where they are more breaking down the game, looking at a tactical perspective. Who is that player that maybe would cause kids to fall in love with the game again?
Well, again, I think the exciting thing is you just mentioned your kid might be a goalie. So now you think about players in the World Cup that have really done well, and the goalkeepers. And again, another player like Courtois has not had a great year club-wise, but he's stepped up and he's built into having a really good tournament. And Hugo Lloris is the leader of Tottenham, and he's the captain of France. So I would say that's what I love about the World Cup. Again, the players can look through the eyes and prism whatever they want, and particularly if there's a player you want to dream of being like, you get to watch these games and dream to be Pogba or dream to be Giroud or these guys out there today.
Well, and in particular, what if your love for the game came from Thierry Henry and watching France? How much of a challenge is that when you are a former national team player and you're coaching against your country? I know neither of you experienced that exact scenario, but what has that got to be like?
I honestly can't imagine. I think it would be extremely difficult. Obviously, you're employed and you're supposed to be doing a job, but there's two different things going on there. The brain is obviously trying to get prepared for your job and getting your team best ready for the game against a team that you played a long time for, that you donned their colors for many, many years, and probably they're one of, if not their greatest goal scorers. So very, very difficult, and I can't imagine being in that position.
Is it once the whistle blows, it doesn't matter? Or what is that feeling? I mean, and it's the semifinal of the World Cup. This isn't just a random friendly that you're coaching against your former country.
One thing is he's not the head coach, and I think that maybe would be a tad difference of a feeling.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great storyline. I think in the end, the competitive side of you, of the job you're hired to do, has got to be first and foremost. But I think you're bringing up a very honest reality that this is what makes the World Cup unique. I mean, you are, I would say the three of us up here we're devastated and we love this World Cup, but it can never be the greatest World Cup for me because the USA is not in it. And the reality is that'll never go away, that pain of not being able to participate in this World Cup. And I think that's the unique thing about it, is the countries really do feel like you're representing yourself on a global stage, and it's exciting, and that's why it always still hurts when we have to do these shows knowing that the U.S. didn't participate. Yeah,
we're not talking about, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but when Toronto FC was at the stadium the other night playing against Minnesota United, every time Michael Bradley touched the ball, he got booed. And I would have to think there's a connection there with being the captain of the men's national team. I don't know if that's rightly or wrongly so that he was getting booed, but you could tell that fans aren't quite over it yet, especially watching such a great World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, personally, it's a bit harsh for me. I mean, frankly, I'll always be one of the 50 names listed that played in a World Cup qualifier in the year that we didn't, make the World Cup. So it's not a group you want to be a part of. It's not a sheet that you want to be on by any means, but it is our reality. And, Michael was obviously a key part of that team over the last 4 years, but there was a lot that went into, the team not qualifying as a whole.
I'm a little tougher than that. I'm part of a generation that, maybe my group's always qualified for the World Cups, but I think it's fine. Michael is an unbelievable player. He's one of the best players in our league, one of the best defensive midfielders, amazing career, amazing leader. I think one of the things I hope this World Cup does is get people to care more. And really, that caring, by the way, we can be completely honest, sometimes has to come from our fan base, sometimes has to come from our clubs, and sometimes has to come from our players. And in this case, like it or not, when we don't qualify for World Cup, it hurts everybody. And I think when you're a young player, I don't think you realize how much it affects everybody, how much you've lost your own generation of playing in the World Cup, but for generations of kids and families and people that really put a lot into it. So for me, I felt that I liked that our Minnesota fans wanted to let one of our most historic players in the history of the game know that it wasn't okay. It's not okay. We need to become a country that qualifies for the World Cups, that gets to quarterfinals, that gets to semifinals, that becomes a global power. And I think part of that process is pushing our players to understand how important it is to qualify for World Cups. And also when it doesn't happen, I think we'll react well. But I do think they need to learn and to care in a way that the rest of the world sometimes cares about the sport.
Well, I think we appreciate that there are people that care enough to have a reaction and an emotion about it.
Yes.
And maybe, as you said, Ethan, it's a little harsh from your standpoint, being on one of those rosters that did play in a qualifier that didn't qualify for the World Cup. But we'll see what 2022 brings. It's a new set of hopefully positives instead of problems. But we still got to break down another semifinal. And this is what's crazy is I was talking to Tyrone Mears at training today, and I said, who you got? You got England in the final. And it's one of those things where there isn't a bad selection out of this. You get down to this stage, and any one of these 4 teams could advance and get to that final. So for Croatia, England, what do you see from that matchup? What do you see of England's run in this World Cup? Is it one of the best England teams you've seen? And Croatia, are they on a lifeline here, kind of sneaking through a couple of rounds?
Well, I think England's playing loose, and they've played loose from the very beginning of this tournament. And I think a lot of times you see English teams, and they so much pressure on them from their fans in their home country that they tend to underperform. And I think this tournament they've got this youth movement going along through their national team, and they've left some of the veterans on the bench and even at home, and that says something, I think, and that comes from the coach, and it trickles down. And they've been on a great run. In my opinion, they're favored in this game. I think Croatia's been a really, really strong team throughout this tournament, but I feel like 240 minutes over the last 2 games is going to do a number on some of their stars. Modric being one of them, obviously, even though he can still do sprints and chase balls down in the 107th minute of the game. But I think England, in my opinion, is favored in that game just because of the workload Croatia's had over the last 2 games.
I think it's fascinating because I think England obviously usually has so much pressure going into a tournament with so many superstars, and they have fledgling superstars for this tournament, but maybe not established superstars, and it's been really amazing to see them come together and play as a unit. And these are great world-class players, and I think they've really been one of the stories of the tournament, and I do think they have a really good chance against Croatia. I really do. I think they'll be favored on to go through. I think the challenge for them is once they go through, the game today has the superstars. There's no doubt about it. We didn't even bring up Mbappe yet, who could be the next Messi, Ronaldo of this generation. So I think once we get to after this game, if England can get through, I think they've got a really big challenge ahead of them. It's a one-off, but they'll be now playing a team, I think, that has massive stars, which I don't think they quite have done this tournament yet. And it'll be really interesting to see if they can overcome that challenge, combined with overcoming a good Croatia team.
Speaking of Croatia, if this game against England were to go to penalties again for some reason, and you just talked about the minutes that they've had on their body, as a player, in your 3rd straight shootout in a row, marks, whatever it's called, kicks from the mark, or whatever the official terminology that nobody actually calls it is, do you change the way you go? Or do you... that's always the big debate. Even when they did it 2 games in a row, the conversation is, do you kick it to the same place? Are you so sure in your approach?
I'm from the mindset of I like to pick my spot and go for the most part. But I think, when you start to get into a shootout, if you're shooter number 3, 4, 5, you start to be able to see if a goalie has a pattern. Is a goalie diving early? Is he not diving at all? Is he trying to bait you into stuff? So as a player, I'm trying to pick out some of those things. But first and foremost, I have a general idea where I'd like to go, whether it's right, left, down the middle, high, low. I have a general idea where I want to go. Now, again, if I see the goalie, he's going early quite a bit, maybe there's an opportunity to go down the middle instead of going to the right or the left. You have to start to think about that. Frankly, though, that's all internal. I'm not going to talk to another guy. I'm not saying necessarily what I'm seeing to another guy, because I understand everyone's different. And some guys, they can hit a clean enough penalty. It doesn't matter where the goalie dives. They're going to smash it into the back of the net. So my mindset is pick your spot and go there.
I'm a little bit with Ethan. I would say, I was a big fan of picking my spot and just doing it. I always felt like I could always beat a goalie if I decided that's where I was going to hit the ball.
Like if the shot was good enough, it doesn't matter if the goalie goes the right way.
Now, having said that, I would say there's a big difference between a PK during the game and the PK at the end of a 120-minute overtime battle where now you're mentally and physically fatigued, and now your mind and your technical side might not line up. So, for example, if you're very good at full instep shots, but you've cramped the last couple minutes of the overtime, you might want to rethink your technique about how you do that free kick to make sure you get it on goal, make sure the goalie has to save it. And or if you're really tired, sometimes guys are like, I want to hesitate to make sure the goalie moves a little bit, and then it becomes an easier pass in, and I don't have to use all the physical, technical energy, and I'm not cramping and make a mistake. So I think there's a little bit of a difference between an in-game PK and when you do a PK shootout.
Well, and that was interesting 2 games ago with Luka Modric. I mean, he had to do that penalty near the end of the game, and then he was in the shootout as well. And I think it's a mind game. And then the goalies, you're saying, is the goalie going to think I'm going to change and I'm not going to, it's like a mind game constantly. With Croatia, what do you like most about them? I mean, everyone talks about Luka Modric, but about that roster and about how they've gotten here to the semifinal, what else is it that stands out to you about the way they play?
I mean, the first thing is the goalkeeping. Outstanding. Holy cow, he's been just, a beast back there. And then I think for me after that, it's so great when you see the part of the country where you have big, strong, athletic, fast, and really the entire team is good at a lot of things. And they really get in the attacking third because they all are very technical. They're all very strong. They're all very good in set pieces. And again, then you kind of have Modric kind of pulling all together. That's why I think they're very dangerous.
I've been impressed defensively. Again, I think the teams that have been good defensively this tournament are the teams that have been in the final. And I think Lovren's been really good. I think Vital in the back, who I'm sure is going to be making a transfer in the next month or two. There's a lot of interest about him based on his performance this tournament. So just in the back, as well as the wing backs, they do a really good job of getting high and putting pressure on the outside midfielders of the other team. You need that solid backbone right down the middle of your team. And I thought combine Rakitic and Modric with the 2 center backs, I think they've been great down the middle of the field.
Well, I think there's something to be said by the term defense wins championships, and a lot of times it's not the part of the game that gets the most attention, but it's the part that really holds up, especially in a tournament like this with such great competition. So we'll let everybody kind of get back to their game watching. It's only, 14 minutes away from kickoff as we've got every TV on in here, 13 minutes and 12 seconds as it continues to count down between France and Belgium. We'll do this again before the final. It's been awesome. We appreciate Brits allowing us to come here and do this, and it's been such a great crowd here and such a great atmosphere. Rain or shine, the fan base has just turned out. So appreciate you guys joining us once again on the live stream, and hope you come down here to Brits to enjoy a game. And of course, we have a friendly of our own tomorrow against Saprissa tomorrow night at TCF Bank Stadium, and then a home match against RSL on Saturday. So join us there as well. Thank you so much.